as you guys can tell by looking at me, you know, I'm not the peak of physical fitness. Okay. But that is definitely a problem in my life that I think that I've neglected. And I think that I could definitely use like a lot of work on. And there's a lot of aspects to it, but Alex, how do you do it, you know, to just conquer? Because I mean, look at you, man. You look great.
Look at you, man. It's true. I mean, I noticed the same thing. Jack walked in, is like, is that a tighter shirt? Like, no, I just worked out this morning, and I'm thinking the same thing.
It's incredible.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
that's what I do it for.
It's just, like, I feel
for
like
that validation.
Flexed, like, it would just tear.
It would
apart.
rip it. Yeah,
but it's stretchy. That's the key, right? That's the key.
Gosh.
So this is a good question, because I mean, I dedicated the first half of my professional career to this, and I would say that the nice thing is that the fitness weight loss thing is a question that has a lot of roots that can apply to other things. It can apply to personal finance, it can apply to fitness, it can apply to marriage. Like the concepts of how you fix it are the same. And so I would ask you a question back, which is, Alex, what do you think you should do? If you wanted to be better than you are right now, what would you do?
In regards to fitness?
Sure.
I already know what to do, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the real question is not what do I need to do, because you already know what to do. The question is, why aren't you doing it?
Yeah. So how do I answer that question? Because I mean, like, I was talking to Graham about this the other day, and I'm going to get a really personal here, guys.
Yeah.
You know, I told Graham that at the weight that I'm at, and luckily I'm comfortable to talk about this, so please don't hold back. I feel like, and I might be putting myself in a box here, and I hate to do this, but I'm speaking openly. I feel like at my weight, you don't get to my weight by having like a small problem, right? I think there's some sort of like emotional problem, whether it's like something like either an addiction to food or like some sort of like.
Well, how much do you weigh right now, if you're comfortable saying it?
I can tell you guys, but I don't. If it's okay, we can remove it from the podcast.
Then I'll ask you a better question.
Okay.
Why aren't you 200 pounds heavier?
Probably because I can't eat that much.
So you do know how to stop.
Yes, I believe so.
So here's what's interesting. You do know how to stop. It's just that you're stopping. You don't have an issue. You just stop at the wrong point. So it's not like I can't stop it. You can stop, because otherwise you'd be 200 pounds heavier.
Can you explain that a little more?
So a lot of people were like, I have an issue, you know, I'm binge eating, I can't stop eating once I start, etc. It's like, okay, well then why aren't you twice as big? Well, I can't eat that much. Cool. Okay. So you do know how to stop. We just need to shift when you stop. Right. But that's like, again, that's only to break that belief. The real is becoming rather than thinking about the doing, right? So you've probably heard the be, do, have, right? Like you have to be a certain type, like habits and how we create our identities are self-reinforcing, right? We do certain things, and because we do those things, we believe certain things about ourselves, right? And because we believe certain things about ourselves, we do certain things, right? And so it's a constant reinforcement loop. And so like one of the telltale signs of somebody who's not going to be successful is like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight. It's like, no, that's not, because like they've already identified themselves as somebody who's not going to lose weight, and so we just need to wait for them to fail, right? Because they already are saying, this is outside of myself, I have to push myself to get there, rather than thinking like, I want to become a healthy person. And so when you're confronting the many hundreds of decisions that you have every day, rather than trying to zone in on the super tactical of like, I have to weigh this and I have to count this and whatever, it's just simply like, what would a healthy person do in this scenario? Like at every point, just like, what would a healthy person do? And it's like, they would do this. Like, okay. And the thing is like, you're not trying to be necessarily right. You just want to be less wrong than you are right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think maybe that's where I kind of had a downfall, because there was a point where I did commit to weight loss, and I in my head, I guess I wasn't right, but in my head, I committed that, you know, this is a lifestyle change, right? It's with me for the whole life. And I lost 45 pounds, which, cool. You know, for me, that was a lot. But for some reason, and it was all that was in my head. Like every day when I would wake up, you know, it would be like a conscious like choice of like what I was eating, blah, 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 you know, but the thing is, it became so I don't want to say, I don't know if it was toxic, but it became so, I'm going to use the word toxic, that like, that's all I thought about in my head. And I don't know how to go back there without doing that again, because it was so, that part was so detrimental to my health, but obviously so is eating. So
yeah, they're both bad. But the thing is like, I think you can take a season and not project it forever, right? So it's just for now, you will have this kind of obsession around eating food, and that's okay because you're making a behavior change, right? Like it's good that it's at the front of your mind. Like that is what is creating the change. After you do that for a year or 2 years or 3 years, it will stop being as important because you'll do it without thinking about it. And then it's not going to be a thing. But most people who have like really exceptional physiques, we're obsessed with it for a period of time. Most people have exceptional marriages. We're obsessed with it for a period of time. People who have really good personal finances. We're obsessed with it for a period of time. And then there's just so many things that like you don't even think about. Or like, well, of course I use whatever, apps use. Like, of course I don't go out to, I don't get appetizers when we go out. Of course I don't buy name brand stuff. Like it's just obviously, but when in the beginning, you have to put active attention because it's not normal. What the goal is to get the activities that you're doing to become kind of unconscious competence, which is like you're doing them without thinking about them so they don't actually take willpower because it's just how you've always done it. But you have to get through the part where it's not how you've always done it. And so you have to allocate more attention to it. So I don't like judging yourself on the fact that it was quote obsessive is like, so what?
But I think it's the toxic, it's the mentality, Alex, right? So why was that toxic for you? What made that impactful? Like
it was literally distracting me from my work. Like I would sit there and I would be working and all I can think about was like, okay, like at 5 p.m. I obsess with the numbers. Like I knew like and this is good. I think it's important to know this. Like I knew how many meals or how many calories the next meal I was eating at what time, and like how many calories I have left for the day, because I was so focused on trying to be in a caloric deficit, which is obviously like the key to losing weight. But like I would be working and I would just think about it, and then it would like pull me out of my work, and like Alex said, I mean maybe it was a good thing, but. And then eventually it just, I stopped following what I was doing, which I in hindsight, obviously I wish I didn't, but that's why it became, I think, a problem for me, Graham. But
yeah, Alex, wouldn't you say it's better, Alex, to find the root cause of the issue, like to go deeper and say, this is why I'm eating a certain way. This is what maybe caused it, and solving that underlying issue would kind of help everything else rather than just focus on the surface level, calories in, calories out.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying with the question. I think a lot of us, because if we have a big problem, we want to find a big root cause, and sometimes it's not. And I think that we have to give ourselves permission for like maybe just food tastes good, and like we're evolutionarily designed to like have a super stimuli when something is salty and fatty and sweet at the same time. And so like we've gotten very good at pushing our own buttons. And so like just saying like, yeah, this is not, because like in some ways it becomes this like huge beast that I have to defeat when we say like this huge emotional issue, and I had my parents, and when I was a kid and I would eat ice cream and that's how I felt good. Well, like you tell yourself these stories, but I don't know how useful it is. Because then it just exaggerates the size of the problem, rather than just saying like I am going to be a healthy person and make decisions that are in accordance with that. And a healthy person, if they ate out once, wouldn't be like, oh, I guess I'm not a healthy person anymore. They would just do better. They would just go back to normal the next day. And so like you can start whenever, as long as you start changing how you identify yourself. And I think that's just like, that's the root of this stuff, is like, how do you identify yourself? And then you act in accordance with that identity. Like if you are always like, I've just always struggled with my weight, well, then that's what you identify with. And so you're just going to reinforce that identity. So we have to switch that. There's a great book on this. James Clear talks, it's Atomic Habits, really good. But you're going to live in accordance with that. And so you have to stop identifying with the things that are not serving you.
I mean, I agree. I don't know. I don't know what to say. What's
holding you back, Alex?
Gosh, we're going deep.
Yeah.
I really don't know, to be honest with you.
Why wouldn't you start today?
There's no reason. So we could do that. I mean, there's nothing. But there was nothing holding me back yesterday or the day before.
Right.
Or
well, just a decision.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can make the decision whenever you want.
Yes, but I think it's a hard decision, I guess.
Why wouldn't you do it today?
There's literally no reason.
Well, there is a reason, because you're not doing it. So why wouldn't you do it? Why are you not doing this right now?
We could. There's literally no reason. Well, that maybe there is, like you said, but there's none that I can think.
No, I think the reason would be that Alex feels like he could do it at any time. So why start today? Because I think it's easier to start next week or the week after. And I know this because I'm very much the same way.
You know what?
It's like
I agree with that because I feel like it's my choice. But then that's so stupid because when I now sitting here, I'm like, well, I also had the choice to start it a year ago, right? So
doesn't it get to the point where all of a sudden the pain exceeds the pleasure? And I don't think Alex has gotten to a point yet where it's painful. It's maybe uncomfortable, but I think starting now is more uncomfortable than just.
You might have to get bigger.
What?
Yeah, you might have to get bigger.
Oh God!
To get there, like, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, you just have to hit your version of rock bottom. You know what I mean? For me, like, my version of rock bottom is like 15% body fat, and so like for me, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I look at myself and I'm like, ugh, just you piece of shit. Come on, don't eat like an asshole, you know? And then I got my shit together, and so like the only difference like between how people look is just where they draw the line of where they feel like an asshole. Like, that's it. Like, all you're doing is just like saying, you know. Like, I feel like an asshole if I have above, 10% body fat. And there's tons of people who live there. And there's tons of people who are like, that line is 20%, that line is 30%. But what's crazy is that, like, once you find maintenance, you just maintain the same way. So it's like, for me, I'd think, like, why would you not maintain at good rather than maintaining at normal? Because, like, all you have to do is get there once, and then you just maintain it. So anyways, that's, Alex's perspective, but that's also because I came from somebody who really wanted outside validation. And so the easiest and first place to start for me was my body. So I started lifting when I was 13 years old. So I'm like almost 20 years in this game in terms of like the lifting and health and stuff. And so for me, this is not like we talked about it at dinner last night. It's like, this is not in any way time consuming for me mentally because like I am a healthy person and I do these things because that is who I am. And so it is not very difficult for me. It's just difficult for people to make the change. And I know the quote you were saying, which is, when change occurs when the pain of staying the same, the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of change.
Correct.
Right. And so it's like, if your current existence hurts more than the discomfort that you will go through, then you will go through the new discomfort to get out of the current pain.
Right.
And so for me, I would like, you know what I mean? Like there's a million ways you can do it. And that's why when you say like the root issue, it's like, there's lots of tiny cues in Alex's environment that reinforce his current behavior. It's not one thing. No. It's like, what's in the pantry as soon as he walks in the door, like just like all of these tiny little things. So like you can change someone's environment. And I'll tell you an interesting one that I actually read in James Clear's book. But so heroin's very hard to get off of. And that's a statement of belief, but I'll just bear with me. In Vietnam, I think it was 15%, and then later they thought it was 20% of guys who went there tried heroin. Insane. Like that's an insane statistic. And what was interesting about that is that when those Vietnamese now became veterans and came back, 90% of them never did it again. And the reverse statistic is true of like US-based addiction programs, right? 90% of people do heroin again after they leave the program. So how can you have the most addictive substance, right? And you've got a 90% success rate in one incident, and then you've got like a 90% failure rate in the other. And this one wasn't even a program, and this one was, right? And so what happens is people, if you can pull someone out of the environment entirely, it's actually much easier to do because it's like you hang out with certain people, right, and they reinforce those behaviors. You have cues in your environment that you've associated with which reinforce the behaviors. And so like if you really went all in on something like this, and you could apply this to any type of behavior, whether it was drugs or food or whatever, is like honestly just changing everything about your life and then starting from scratch is like, I'm making these big changes, I'm burning the boats, I'm being this person, and I will make these choices as a result of this in accordance with that. Is sometimes the best way to do it is like clean slate, but that might sound like a lot of change. And so you can also just not do any of that stuff and just eat less. But it's just tackling the big issue, which is like why you don't care.